Welcome to Fade to Chat, the podcast where we revisit classic films and talk about why they still matter, or at least why they're still fun to watch. And this one was a fun one to watch. I'm Marty Jensies, joined always by Cindy Rotz, and we are going to talk about Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, a 1948 film. This is kind of post-war. People are coming back. People are looking at starting families and creating homes. It's comforting, it's stressful, and it's post-World War II suburbia. And on the surface, it's a light domestic comedy starring Cary Grant and Myrna Loy. And I think I'm a Myrna Loy fan, and I think Cindy is a Cary Grant fan because we've had a few of those. It had been a while since I've seen this, and the movie starts off with like a narration of industrial living in downtown New York and all of that. And I forgot that part, completely forgot that part.
I did too.
That was part of it. And then it moves into their current apartment in New York and where they're living in New York. Cindy, what do you think of this one?
Well, I thank you again for letting me choose. When we first started this podcast, I actually thought of this movie as like my all-time favorite, just because it's Cary Grant. As we said, I just love to watch him. But I think this movie is just something everyone can relate to. Anybody that's built a house, knows somebody who's built a house, if you've remodeled a house, anybody can relate to what they've gone through with this movie. And so for me, it was just fun to watch. And I love that time period. I love that style of home. I enjoy going back in time, a simpler time. And I enjoyed it. But I'm like you, I forgot the very beginning. I thought, where did that come from? I did not remember that at all.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird monologue of
Yeah, I'm not sure it was necessary.
yeah, either do I. You're right about
Mm-mm,
that. I don't think it was necessary for
mm-mm.
them to be able to get into the movie with that. And
Oh,
I can see what the author was trying to do, or at least the screenwriter, because this is based on a
mm-hmm.
book. And I'm not sure, I can't envision the opening sequence being part of a book. Maybe a descriptive piece, but
Mm.
it was kind of turned into like a news broadcast kind of thing that was
Yeah,
going on. So
yeah.
it was very different. Um, but I like a lot of things about this film. I like Cary Grant. I really like Myrna Loy. I like seeing Myrna
Mm-hmm.
Loy out of the role of Thin Man, although she's kind of the same. If you watch, she is the punchline at the end
Yeah,
of a setup joke.
mm-hmm.
And Cary Grant is doing a lot of the joke setups. He gets a
Mm-hmm.
fair amount of his in there too. But when they're on screen together, you know she's going to provide the rejoinder in
Yeah,
terms of whatever she says
yeah.
is going to be the punchline for the joke. It was directed by H.C. Potter, who, we've done William Wyler and we've done Billy Wilder and we've done
Wilder,
Hitchcock, and they
Hitchcock.
have these
Yeah.
long, rich history and stylized kinds of films that they do. And I'll tell you, he does not have a lot um, in his
I'm glad
history.
you said that because I looked him up thinking I'm going to start to learn something about the directors because that's always seems to be your area of expertise. And there was very, very little about him.
Yeah, it was Hell's a Poppin'. I
Mm-hmm.
remember the titles from 1941. H.C. Potter did that. and it had Ole Olsen, Chick Johnson, and Martha Ray in that film, and sort of a comedy. So this was 7 years before Mr. Blandings builds his dream house. That was 1948. And then he did The Story of Vernon and Irene Castle. That was 1939. So that was a few years prior, more than a few years prior. And that was basically Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers doing a biopic, essentially, of that couple. Other than that, there's not a lot of credits for him. He has 22 credits as a director. In films that just the Minerva Story, You Gotta Stay Happy, Time of Your Life. I mentioned Hell's a Poppin'. Just not an extensive directorial piece. This is kind of a, it's not going to require a lot of depth for this. No. It's, the way it's written and the way it's set up with that. So, main character, maybe you can just give, I don't know if we need to go through scene by scene on this because it's pretty clear, but some of the major transitions or the major themes that happen in the movie. Main character, of course, Cary Grant. And he plays a advertising agent. And in that role, he and his family are in a New York apartment, and the claustrophobia of the apartment is really generated. It's too small for the number of people, his wife, Myrna, and their 2 daughters, trying to share one apartment, one bathroom, one closet for the couple to be able to, and one dresser drawer for the couple to be able to put all their stuff in. And so you get that claustrophobic feeling. They have a maid, Gussie, who is part of that role. Yeah. And she's a domestic who essentially at one point in the movie has a real essential role.
Yes.
Cary Grant plays this role of the advertising agent, and he seems a little frustrated. And he gets assigned early on because so many of the advertising colleagues that he has wind up losing their jobs or going someplace else because they've done a failed campaign. Mm-hmm. So he gets assigned a campaign for Wham Ham that gets passed on to him, and it's the biggest the biggest account that they have, and it's leaving advertising agents dead by the side of the road. Everything they pitch winds up not working for the company. So a little stress there, but he decides the opportunity for them is to move out of town because Myrna Loy decides she wants to just remodel the apartment and knock out a wall. And I forget the name of the guy that they had as the interior decorator.
His first name was Bunny.
Yes.
And he wore open-toed sandals.
Yeah, open-toed sandals. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, Cary Grant didn't like that. He said, "You mean that guy that wore those open-toed sandals?"
Toed sandals, yeah.
Bunny, he had a funny last name. It was a long last name.
And he gets credit. He is in the credits. Funkhauser or something like that.
That's right. I think you're right. Yeah.
Were there scenes? I couldn't remember. Were there actual scenes with him in the movie? Yeah, no. That was the point.
No.
The teacher who has all the attitudes that tells the daughters, well, the daughter says, well, my teacher so-and-so, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
Says you should do this. And Cary Grant's like, well, you can tell your teacher this.
Yeah, exactly. In their private school.
I think that role got credit too. But Bunny Funkhauser, because there are some still shots of that I think I have here,
Hmm.
with Bunny Funkhauser. Uh, Let me see if I can get to it. The actor who plays it, apparently they did. Um, there's Bunny. The actor who played Bunny
Oh,
Funkhauser got, I guess, left on the cutting room floor,
he
but they
looks
still gave him
familiar.
screen credit because
Okay.
he had done all his performances and all of that worked out
Yeah.
with it.
And I think the
So
teacher's name was Miss Stillwagon,
Miss Stillwag,
something
yeah,
like
and
Stillwagon. Yeah.
yeah, so she is kind of a character that never appears on screen at the
Hmm.
same time. So they
And Gussie
decide.
the maid,
Gussie's the maid.
does she live there, or does she doesn't live there, but she's always there first thing in the morning, getting their breakfast and so
Yeah,
on.
well, I guess if they're moving out to Connecticut, Gussie appears in the Connecticut when they're out in Connecticut.
Yeah,
So I assume she's living there. It might
because they
not in New
wanted a
York, but
maid's room for her. They
yeah,
actually had a maid's room in their plans for her. So I just
yeah,
wondered.
yeah.
Yeah, she looks familiar to me as well.
So the other character, there were a couple of other characters, and we'll talk about them before we get further. But there is a old friend of the couple
Mhm.
who is played by Melvyn Douglas. And if you're watching the video portion of this, Melvyn Douglas is on the right. He happens to be wearing a Cary Grant smoking jacket.
Yeah.
There's a whole storyline around that. And then in the lower left, you have Mr. Sims, who is the architect
Mhm.
and part of the discussion. But last night was the Super Bowl. What was on was Ninotchka, which stars Greta Garbo. And I had seen Ninotchka before. It was redone in another version of it later on, and it was more of a, I think, maybe a bit of a musical. But it was the first version was done with Greta Garbo, and the redone version was called Silk Stockings,
Mm.
and Melvyn Douglas was in that as the in the first version. The version I watched last night is sort of the uh, suitor that is trying to win Greta Garbo over. He's the American, and
Mm.
that whole movie is about American and Russian conflicts and their perceptions of communism,
Mm.
but it's meant as a farce. Um, it's an Loops film that was done. So it was kind of weird to know we were going to talk about this movie, and then I'm watching a movie where Melvyn Douglas is kind of playing the lead, male trying to woo Greta Garbo in it.
Yeah.
But he played he played the friend of the family, good friend and attorney to Cary Grant and Myrna Loy, and
Hmm.
he was constantly advising them about the mistakes that they've made after they made the mistake.
Right.
Um, so I'm going to pause for a minute and see if you have any thoughts or things that I might have missed that you or ideas you want to add in.
Just that he was also supposedly they went to college together, he and Myrna Loy, and they found out later that she had his fraternity pin, and that turns out to be a whole big thing between she and Cary Grant, which was, I thought, funny. Showed a little bit of Cary Grant's jealous side, which was interesting to see. But she apparently was his sweetheart in college.
Yes.
But yes, and Cary Grant shows a little bit of signs throughout the movie, because whenever his name was Bill Cole, whenever he leaves, he always shakes Cary Grant's hand and he kisses Myrna
Myrna
Loy.
Loy.
And at one point, Cary says, "What's with all this kissing?" And she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, every time he leaves, he kisses you and shakes my hand." And then she says, "Well, would you rather it be the other way around?"
And if you look at his expression, he kind of pauses for a minute,
It's
like,
like,
let me think about
mm,
this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and at one point he even looks at his hand like, "Yep." he shook my hand, but he's always kissing you. And he didn't
Yeah.
like that very much.
Yeah. Near the end of the movie, when they try to
Hmm.
resolve some of the jealousy issues,
Yeah,
he says, Melvyn Douglas's character says goodbye and does the same process. And you can see Cary Grant kind of
yeah,
looking at his hand again with
yeah.
that. Yeah, there is that side story of jealousy that
Hmm.
uh, is set up by the fact that Cary Grant's stuck in town for an evening and Bill is stuck at their new house for an evening, and that gets resolved in a way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and the advertising dilemma gets resolved in a way too
Hmm.
for Cary Grant's dilemma. Without giving away too many spoilers, I think
No.
this movie is a movie that you'll watch for the fun and the
Hmm.
fallacy that people have. Anybody, whether you built a house or you're just doing some type of remodeling in your house
Model.
or restoration in
Yeah,
your house, the
yeah,
craziness of what goes on with it.
yeah.
And the searching for water where the guy is like, is that good? No, that's bad. Is that good?
Yeah,
Well, then we hit shale. Is that good?
yeah.
No, that's bad. Then we hit limestone. Oh, is that bad? No, that's good.
No, that's good.
Um, and and back and forth, and he has to go, I guess, 100 and so many feet down, which of course is
Hmm.
charging him per foot.
Hmm.
Um, and then the guy who's digging the cellar winds up hitting water at like 6 feet.
Yeah. It's like now they have two water sources. And he said, how could that happen? Well, now we have water at 6 feet and we have water at what, 270 or something.
Yeah,
And he said,
something like that.
well, over here you have water at 6 feet. Over here you have water at 270 feet. He went, yep. He was the one that kept going, yep. Mr. Tasander, I think was his name.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I didn't quite understand, because when they try to sell him the land, the guy who sells him the land says,
Hmm.
"Oh, and you can get fresh spring water right across. You can get fresh, water
He did. He did.
in the river that runs right across your land." And so
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know nothing about digging water, but I thought, wait a minute. They said they had a source or access for
Right.
fresh water just
And
across the
that
way.
man, what was his name? The man that sold them the property. He was a recognizable actor to me.
Uh, Ian Wolfe,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Smith. Did you recognize him?
Yeah. Yeah, he had that
Okay.
sourpuss face. He
Yeah.
has definitely been in other movies. And since I'm clicking on it, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, THX 1138. That was one of the first movies by George Lucas back in 1971.
Hmm.
Wow. I was looking at that to see if that was because I was looking at that as a possibility. Witness for the prosecution, saboteur. Um, he was a forger in Dick Tracy.
I believe he was
Boy,
on TV as well.
yeah. He lived from 1896 to 1992. So
Wow.
God bless him. I hope I have the same longevity.
Hmm.
So yeah, interesting. That whole sequence of setting up and buying the house, and the attorney kind of recommending him not to do things or to do things first.
Yeah.
It is one of those things that you just follow along. The Money Pit, Tom Hanks's film.
Oh,
It sort
yeah.
of
Seen
feels
that.
a lot like Tom Hanks's modern
Yeah.
version
Yeah.
of it, and then the Tom Hanks, and I forget who the character actress was that was in there.
Um,
She was
oh,
on Cheers.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Just lost it. Yeah.
They get into their own kind of relationship thing similar to what Myrna Loy and Cary Grant did in this film.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been replicated, this concept has been replicated quite a bit through the years. This was based on a story that appeared in a magazine that then got extended to a book. It was a very popular story where the guy writes this experience of trying to build his dream house. And I've gotten two different histories on this. One history was everything worked out, and I'm sure everything worked out. But with this particular situation, I also heard a case where he went bankrupt trying to get the house done.
I didn't hear
And he
that.
had to kind of either file for bankruptcy. Now, this was like the intro to the TCM version that I looked at, and they refer to it. It led to him having to go bankrupt. But I didn't hear that in any of the other trivia, and tried to search that out and couldn't find it.
And apparently they challenged some of local, the local architects to build replicas of this house throughout the country to promote the movie. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, it was they attempted to do this. The house, Blandings Way, really exists
Yeah.
on
73
the Indian Hill
replicas.
Road in New Milford, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. It's huge. While the Art Deco and Colonial House has had many actual rooms discussed in the movie, such as a room for cut flowers. As a promotional stunt, the studio had 73 replicas of the
Yes.
Blandings house built around the country. And if you search for the Blandings house, you'll see a variety of locations. I think I saw one that was either in Detroit or Dearborn, Michigan. The
Mm-hmm.
actual house that was shot was they used the Malibu Creek State Park because that was a substitution for Connecticut. And
Mm.
so instead of doing all this on location in Connecticut somewhere, they did it in what was then Malibu Creek State Park. And they did the building there. The building is still there. I tried to get a street view of it, but there's not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
streets on Google Maps that takes you through there. They say it's used as an administrative building at Malibu Creek State Park. The
Mm.
other show that people might be familiar with, apparently Hollywood was using this as kind of a remote area in some cases. MASH, the TV show MASH, was shot at a certain portion in the Malibu State Park. So you
Mm.
can go to the MASH location if you travel through
Yeah,
Malibu Creek State Park.
that's
Um,
interesting.
so yeah, they build these things around the house, around the United States. Uh, Blanding's yearly salary was 15,000.
Yeah, I
It would
love that.
be somewhere around 200,000 in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And they said the cost of the house was 15,000. So if you use that same sort of you know inflation reference, and that might not be true for income versus
Mm-hmm.
property, you're looking at a $200,000 home, which
Right.
I'm probably more than that now. So yeah, it's an interesting history about these houses, and you called it right that there were replicas placed around the United States. They are still livable, and these places are homes that people have moved into over the years, probably done some refurbishing, but you can see some of the exteriors look very much like
Mm-hmm.
the Blandings house that you see at the end of the movie.
That's one thing that I was disappointed in, that you didn't get to really see the final house. Because in my mind, I'm imagining I mean, you saw a little snippet of the living room, but you didn't get to see the beautiful finished house.
But Oh, you mean like a walk through the
The
house?
interior. Like, I want to see, what did
Yeah,
that kitchen look like after she went through all those paint colors? And she
yeah.
was so exact about every paint color for every single room. And then the painter said, okay, she wants red, green, blue, white, and yellow, which technically
But the
that's what
movie
she
was in
said, but
black and white.
I know, I know. So it wouldn't have made any difference. But she was so specific about, I want, yellow for the dining room, but not just any yellow. And she actually told him that he should go to the grocery store and get the best butter that you can find, because that's the exact yellow that she wanted. Not just any yellow. It had to be the best color of butter. And
Yeah.
she related all these colors to the painter. But yeah, you didn't really get to see the final house and how
And that's
beautiful I'm
that's
sure
where
it
you tell
was.
me I know about directors. That's what you know about. You know about what color and set design should
Yeah,
should be like,
yeah.
and
I
you're
wanted to see
very
all that.
aware of that. I
Yeah.
just saw some information so I'm confused where the actual house really is.
Okay.
The house is built for the movie, still exists in Malibu, at coordinates 34 degrees, 5 minutes and 41 seconds north. And so I might do, after this,
Check that
go
out.
in. We'll put this in the show notes so other folks can do that too. But it says on the old 20th century Fox Ranch.
Hmm.
So I gotta wonder if that's part of the Malibu Creek State Park now, or I'm very curious, and I'll play with that
Yeah,
after
I
we
wasn't
record the
sure because when
episode.
you said about the creek, I thought I didn't read that. I read about the Fox Ranch, and also Dory Sherry was mentioned in the beginning. Gina said Dory Sherry presents,
Yeah.
and he apparently lived nearby this as well. His country home was near here,
At the end of the
but I
movie,
didn't
you
know
do get
why
a
he was
shot.
mentioned.
Yeah, you get a shot of the exterior when
Hmm.
Cary Grant is out with Bill and with Myrna Loy, Melvyn Douglas and Myrna Loy, and enjoying the outside of the exterior of their home as they pan away. And I won't give any more than
Right.
that
No, no, no.
for folks who haven't seen it yet. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to um, suggest with this.
Well, for me, I enjoyed the interaction between Cary Grant and Myrna Loy, even in the very beginning scene when they're in their separate beds, of course, and the alarm's going off. And he reaches over with his hand and turns the alarm off. Doesn't say anything, he just turns it off. She reaches over with her hand from her bed, turns it back on. He turns it off. She turns it back on, and he smacks her hand. Nothing
Uh,
said. Just that interaction between the two of them. He smacks her hand like, "Stop that! I don't want that alarm to go off anymore." And then just watching him in the beginning, he steps over, this piece of furniture, and he steps over something else. Like you said, it was so crowded to get to the closet. He can't find his socks. He's in his drawer. Where are my socks? They're not in my drawer. And she says, well, maybe they're in your underwear drawer. And he says, well, I'm in my underwear drawer. And then she ends up telling him that she put his socks in a basket in the closet. And then he ends up going to the closet and everything's falling out. And just that beginning scene I thought was okay. It kind of set the stage for everything.
my
And
favorite scenes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, I just thought it was sweet. And then he goes to the kitchen, he gets his orange juice, and he brings her back a cup of coffee. And that's really the first interaction the two of them have. She says, oh, thank you. And he brings her his coffee. I thought they just had that quiet communication between the two of them. Didn't have to
But
have a
did
lot of dialogue.
I notice something about that particular scene when he brings the coffee back? Her head is down like
Yes.
she's sitting up and asleep,
Yes.
and he grabs the top of her
He
head and
pulls
lifts
her
it up,
hair. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
puts the coffee underneath her. Which
Uh-huh.
either that was something the actors came up with. I don't know if people wrote it into the script, but it
Hmm.
really felt so natural in the process
Yeah.
and funny. I mean,
Yeah.
he could have just given her coffee, but
Oh
that whole
no.
thing
He
adds
pulled her up by the
adds a
hair.
laugh to her, to the thing. Um, I've got some stuff. I mentioned other movies, The Money Pit from 1986 with Tom Hanks, and Shelley Long was the actress that I was looking
Shelley
for.
Long, that's it.
And then
Yeah.
Sweden had one called The Dream House from 1993, starring Björn, Skifs, and Suzanne Reuter. And then Hollywood's Are We Done Yet from 2007 with Ice Cube and Nia Long. So this
Hmm.
frustration just goes from generation to generation with it.
Yeah.
Cary Grant also reprised his role as Jim Blandings for Mr. and Mrs. Blandings, a weekly radio program.
Hmm.
Betsy Drake, his wife, his first wife. That was a kind of sad conclusion to their relationship. His first wife at the time played Muriel Blandings, so she stood in for the Myrna role, and Gail Gordon from the old Lucy show.
Hmm.
Yes, you remember Gail Gordon.
Yes. Oh, I loved him.
He
Yeah.
played Bill Cole. So,
Okay.
um,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, I did a little weird investigation. Went down this path.
Okay.
I wanted to know what was the deal with the bump on Cary Grant's head. You have to look
Hmm.
in the earlier films, like this one, and with some close-ups. And there was a movie that we looked at. Or that I looked at. We haven't looked at it. Called one of his films, An Affair to Remember.
Oh, I love that
And
movie.
the the director said I can't do close-ups because he has this kind of little prominent bump on his head. And I noticed it in
Hmm.
films, and then kind of did a search to find out what was going on with this. Um, it was a tumor that was non-cancerous and benign,
Hmm.
and he had it through most of his life. But it was aggravated because he'd rub it all the time when he was a kid,
Hmm.
and that would aggravate it and cause it to grow a little bit.
I never knew
Kind of
that.
flat, kind of maybe $half shaped, and you can see it in some of the shadowings on his forehead in some of the movies. So they wanted him to go ahead and have surgery and have it removed, and he got he would delay his acting career and his career for a while the wound healed, and
Hmm.
instead he had the bump removed by a friend,
Hmm.
and Betsy Drake, I think it
Oh
was,
my
he was
gosh.
still married to, uh, did like hypnotism, and they did
Okay.
it like at their home
Mm.
with this friend who removed it, and he was back to work in a couple of weeks
Oh
versus
my gosh.
a hospital stay. So I've seen that
Wow.
because you look at Cary Grant's face and you see that facial feature and you see that little raised bump, and some folks have that.
I'll have to
I
go
mean,
back and look at it.
and so I asked, "What's the deal with that?" And
Huh.
I found out the story of his choice to either be hospitalized and have it removed, or how he had it removed. Now, Cary Grant
Oh.
has had an interesting life. There have been some incredible kind of documentaries and
Mm.
short subject storylines on some of the streaming services. I've seen them all. If you haven't seen them, Cindy, you need to look at them
Oh, I've watched quite a
because
few. Hmm.
yeah, because he's had an interesting life, and then his latter life was involved, of course, with his second wife, and also sort of just he's trying to form relationships with his daughter and his family, and he gets into some mysticism and he gets into some LSD, and it was an interesting journey. You don't think of people at that time getting into that kind of stuff
No.
at his age at that time. But there's a lot to admire
Interesting.
by that, for me, by that kind of personal exploration.
Yeah. Well, sometime I'll tell you my hypnotism story.
Okay, we'll do that
Maybe
off
at Max
camera.
Stock. Yeah, I'll save
Yeah, or
that for
Max
you.
Stock. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a good one.
I don't know if I have. Uh, oh, so the credits were not the teacher. The credits were Dan Tobin is credited as Bunny Funkhauser. We mentioned that,
Okay.
the interior
Mm.
decorator. And Will Wright is credited as F. Hackett. Both are mentioned by name in scenes, but never really appear on the
So,
screen.
mm,
We do have stills of Bunny that we have incorporated into the video version of this that you can take a look at.
okay.
Scenes apparently made the cutting room floor.
Did you notice anything unusual about the man who was varnishing the floor when they first came into the house?
No, tell me.
He was smoking.
Okay.
Yeah, he was smoking while he was varnishing that floor. I thought, well, that's a big no-no.
Yeah,
He
well,
was all upset that Cary Grant walked in and messed up his floor. I thought, well, you're smoking. A whole lot more could go wrong with that.
different expectations around safety in
Oh,
those
yeah.
days. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I thought that the two children, the two little girls, they were so grown up for their age. The one just
Yeah.
kept saying, bicker, bicker, bicker. Yeah, every time they'd have a disagreement, bicker, bicker, bicker. Yeah, they were cute. And I loved, and see, again, I related a lot of this to myself growing up because I shared a bathroom with my sister
Hmm.
until she moved out, got married. I shared a bathroom with my parents growing up until college. And so I could relate to a lot of that, especially the time when I don't remember which daughter it was, Betsy or Joan, one of the two, was in the bathroom and Cary Grant just opened the door and she screamed and she said, Father, why don't you ever knock? And he said, well, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
He was just so cool about it. But I thought, yeah, that I can relate to that because you're all trying to get in and out of the bathroom in the morning. And I love the scene with Cary Grant and Myrna Loy trying to share the bathroom. She's busy looking at her face and putting stuff on her face, and he's cutting himself in the mirror because she's butting in front of him, and they're crowding and back and forth and trying to, do their morning routine, sharing this little tiny bathroom. So I thought a lot of it was just relatable.
That the character Grant plays, he talks about, you never shave with an electric razor. He was like, you never
Oh
shave
my
with an
God.
electric. That was
Yeah.
supposed to represent his traditionalism, but
Hmm.
frankly, that was his attitude. And in fact, he didn't shave with just a double sided razor.
Hmm.
He used a straight razor in
Yeah.
real life. And so, he was like, that's the way gentlemen
That's the way
shave.
you
They
do it.
don't use electric
Hmm.
razors. So some of that is real life kind of coming into his experience in the
Mm.
film and plays to that. He's kind of traditional in his views
Yeah.
and how he feels things should happen.
Yeah.
I grew up in a house where it was my grandparents' house. My grandfather
Mm.
had passed away before I was any of age to know. My grandmother slept on the first floor. My brother would sleep on the floor. The oldest brother would sleep on the first floor. They had one bathroom, which was sort of the shared bathroom for the household. And then upstairs, there
Hmm.
was a second bathroom that was sort of my dad's bathroom because that's what he used
Mm.
to get ready in the morning to go to work.
Mm.
And we would use it, occasionally. So the who's in the bathroom, when can you get in?
Exactly.
That whole dance is familiar to me. And
Yeah.
for folks who've grown up with extended family in the household with less bathrooms than what would be best accommodating, have that same experience too.
Yeah.
Do you have any further comments before we talk about the next movie?
Do you want to talk about the ending a little bit before we? Because they did
Yeah,
resolve the
you, yeah. Why don't
his
you?
dilemma.
Yeah, why don't you talk about the ending?
Yeah, well, his dilemma was that he had to come up with a new slogan for this product called Wham. And he had 6 months to come up with it. And apparently he just procrastinated and thought, well, I'll come up with it, no problem. And at the very last minute, the night before, he had to spend the night in the office with his secretary. And she had fallen asleep on the sofa. And he was trying to come up with these slogans, and every couple of minutes he'd snap his fingers at her and she'd wake up and he'd say, how about this? And he'd give her a slogan and she's like, no, that doesn't work. Or no, that's too familiar to some other slogan with another company. And he said, well, I just give up, I can't think of anything. And he gave up and he went home. And that's where he found that Bill Cole had spent the night because the bridge was out due to the rain. And he had that little confrontation with him about, why are you here with my wife? And the maid wasn't here and the children weren't here. And he's imagining all this going on, which of course nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they resolved that. But so finally the maid comes back in and the children come back home and the children are starving. And they're running into the house saying, we're hungry, we're starving. They say to Gussie, the maid, what's for breakfast? What's for breakfast? We're starving. And they said, are we having ham? She said, oh no, we're not having ham. She said, we're having wham. If you ain't eating wham, you ain't eating ham. And Cary Grant looks at his wife and he says, Muriel, give Gussie a $10 raise. And then they show the picture of Gussie, the
Her
maid.
in the
They
ad.
use
Yeah.
her and the aide holding this big this big platter of wham. And it says the caption, if you ain't eating wham, you ain't eating ham. And then the very, very end of the movie, of course, he's obviously come up with the slogan, everybody's happy, and they show them all outside their beautiful home. And Bill's there with them, and Gussie and the children are playing in the background. And Cary Grant's actually reading a book called Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House.
By the author of the book that the movie was based on.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, Eric Homer, I think his name was. It was on because I looked for that clearly to find out. Yeah,
Okay.
and again, I as I mentioned, I heard one report that in the process of doing this, he went bankrupt. I don't know. Um, but I couldn't find any other confirmation about that. So and couldn't find even a source that said that happened. So, but yeah, is written by him. I wanted to find out sort of. I also am curious what happened to him after that, because this was kind of a big event in his life in terms of what might have occurred. Did he continue on with advertising? How long did he live there? How long was he alive? Those kinds of questions that I didn't pursue, but will pursue probably off show, and our listeners can pursue them too.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun of seeing these movies and having these kinds of discussions and ideas. Any final comments or any final things you want to get in before we talk about next week's movie?
No, not really. Just like you said, it's not a deep movie. It's very lighthearted. Everyone can relate to it. It's just a fun movie to watch, and
Yeah,
I'd highly recommend
but
it.
but if you're a movie sleuth like I am, and I think you're becoming,
Mm.
there's so much stuff you want to find out about,
Oh
and
yeah.
you ask the right questions, you get the right search pieces.
Um,
Yeah, it sounded like you were going to say something.
oh, it got stuck there for a minute. I wasn't sure. I read that they wanted Irene Dunn, who we had just seen,
Yeah,
and
they had,
yeah, they wanted her to do the movie with Cary
yeah,
Grant, but
and
she was not available.
we saw that in the awful. We saw her in the Awful
Mm-hmm.
Truth, and her pairing
Just
with
saw
him in the
her.
Awful Truth was a
Yeah.
great character. I'm glad you added that in because I have
Mm-hmm.
become an Irene Dunn fan.
Yeah.
And if you have time or availability, or if you can search on TCM, or I use YouTube, so a lot of these things play on TCM, and they're
Mm-hmm.
in the search engines for it that you can get a video on demand. She has some other great movies that are just fun. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm glad you reminded me and the listeners about that they were looking at Irene Dunn, and it would have been an interesting pairing.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie we're doing next time, we talked about this. This movie is a fun little movie that we did now. And, we've done really big chunk movies like Lawrence of Arabia. And so this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of a middle bite movie that, as far as Cindy knows, she hasn't seen it. And I've seen it a gazillion times. I know I know that there are genres that you don't enjoy, particularly ones that have violence. This doesn't have violence in it. It is a
Okay.
satire of the Cold War, the nuclear Cold War, and it's directed by Stanley Kubrick from 1964, and it is called Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. And
Mm.
well, for me, it creates a lot of laughter along the way. So it'll be interesting to see how you react to
Okay.
this. Peter Sellers plays three roles in this movie. There is going to be a lot of trivia and a lot of stuff we can talk about this film
Okay. Well, I
because,
like Peter Sellers,
yeah, yeah.
so that's
Well,
good.
yeah. And I like Stanley Kubrick, and this is about as
Yeah.
early as we can go with Stanley Kubrick without getting out of our genre. He did some earlier ones, earlier films that were also good films, but this one kind of set him in motion as a really kind of an auteur director. So
Where can I
next
find
time we
this
meet,
movie, Marty? Where
pardon?
can I find it? Where am I going to find this movie?
We can
I won't
talk
have
off.
trouble finding it. Okay.
No, you won't. It's popular,
Okay.
and it's on all streaming services. Where you can find it
Okay.
versus where you have to pay for it or rent it, it might be two different things.
Doesn't
But
matter.
we'll talk about that.
Okay.
I own this film. This was one of the films I saw through my stint in college when I
Mm,
was taking film courses.
okay.
It is wild. It is wild, but it's also kind of makes a statement of the craziness of the and the potential destructiveness of nuclear war. But mainly, it's the craziness. And I'll just say one thing about the movie. Uh, we'll meet again. I don't know where, don't know when,
Mm,
but we'll meet again someday. And once you see this film, and if you've already seen this film, you know what I'm talking about.
mm.
So thanks, Cindy, for this. That wraps up the episode of Fade to Chat with Cindy Rotz and myself, Marty Gencius. If you enjoyed the discussion, please subscribe. And it's been fun because this is a relatively new show and we're starting to see people subscribe to it. And that is so cool
Mhm.
because this is a hobby for us. It's a lot of fun
Yeah.
to be able to do. And I'm really grateful to have Cindy along for the ride on this. And she's been such a great co host, in a lot of ways, better than I would be as a host because she really does her homework on this stuff and has
No,
such a good
I don't
eye.
think so.
She has such a good eye for stuff. You can find everything that we do on the website, thepodtalk.net, and you can email us on the Podtalk Network at gmail.com if you want to send in comments or have suggestions for movies. We're even sometimes taking the risk of having a guest person, and Stephanie in that one time. So we enjoy having things to mix things up with. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep watching the classics, and we'll see you as we fade